Welcome to the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast Spotlight, where we revisit take-home messages and shine a light on previous FRW podcasts in 10 minutes or less. I'm Lex, AZ's right and left-hand woman, and I churn out these mini episodes for her. Let's go.
Again, decades of evidence, but this persistent decline in the physical activity levels of the population. So there was this disconnect, right? Like, well, how is it that we have all this science, but the problem's getting worse? And then I took a class in health promotion, and the class was about messaging and framing in public health. So how do you frame or talk about a particular problem? And the class was being taught by a professor who I love. He's fantastic. His name is Jim Thrasher. So shout out to Jim Thrasher at the University of South Carolina. But his area of expertise was actually in tobacco control policy. And what I learned in his class was that what led to the significant drop in smoking in the US and the subsequent precipitous drop in lung cancer in this country was not the evidence on the harmful effects of smoking to the smoker, but the harmful effects of secondhand smoke. So in essence, what was happening was you had all this science that said smoking was really bad for you, but that wasn't enough for any kind of policy change to try to limit that behavior. But when the evidence on the harmful effects of secondhand smoke became evident, that's when you saw the federal government and even, local municipal governments stepping in and saying, we're going to limit your access to cigarettes. We're going to put Surgeon General's warnings on packages of cigarettes, and we're going to tax cigarettes, and we're going to limit where you can even use them, right? You can no longer smoke in the workplace or on airplanes and so on, and in bars and so on and so forth. And so basically what you did was you changed the environments, making it really difficult to access the thing that was negatively impacting not only individuals and their own health, but the health of others. And so it was in that moment, as I was studying this stuff, that I kind of went, okay, we know that physical inactivity is really bad for the individual and physical activity is really good for the individual. What is the secondhand smoke equivalent? How is my being physically inactive adversely affecting other people? And that's when I started doing research on the physical fitness levels of recruits entering the military and the associations between low fitness and musculoskeletal injuries that were taking place during basic training and then following service members over the course of their careers and then even into veteran status, and how much that was costing the Department of Defense and the VA. And so that's when I sort of had this idea that I think we need to reframe physical inactivity as not necessarily a public health issue, but as a national security issue. And so that's sort of that relationship. And again, the problem is getting worse, right? As we're seeing physical activity levels and fitness levels still continuing to decline. We see that this year, for example, the U.S. Army fell short of its recruiting goal by approximately 20,000 soldiers.
Wow.
And so what does that mean? It means that we're going to have a smaller army. It means that selection processes for things like special operation forces, those things may decline as well. They're having trouble filling their ranks, and you're just going to have this trickle-down effect. And I know the same is true across the fire service and also in law enforcement. It's getting harder and harder and harder to find individuals who not only have the desire or propensity to serve, whether that's serving their country in the U.S. Armed Forces or serving their community as a first responder, but they also lack the fitness to serve. So finding individuals who have both is becoming increasingly more challenging, and that poses very real and very present threats to our national security, but also our state and local safety and security.
Absolutely. And as you were talking about the tremendous expense for the military on these soldiers or other military members that they're hiring, the dollar signs just started, fling, fling, fling in my head. Is that number in the millions? Is it in the billions?
It's in the billions. It's in the billions.
Lord.
Yeah, it's in the billions. So because there's not only just the direct medical cost for treating the injury as it happens, let's call it an ankle sprain or maybe it's shin splints or something like that. There's the direct medical cost, but then there's also the indirect costs. So there's taking the person out of, in the fire service would be putting them on limited duty, basically. Or maybe they get processed out of the military, and the amount of time and money that you've spent on training that person, now all that is lost. So when you start adding these dollars up, they're in the tens of billions of dollars per year for the DoD, and then it just moves on to the VA as they have to treat the residual effects of these musculoskeletal injuries that were sustained over the course of a service member's career. So it is a major economic issue, but it's also a practical issue from the standpoint of just having enough people who are fit enough to go out and do the job.
Well, and not only, I think this was your analogy, we're all dipping from the same well. So police, fire, and military agencies are all trying to hire from the same well. Historically, many of the police officers and firefighters were former military members. So that pipeline, especially if there's so many of them getting injured and processed out, that pipeline is getting shut down as well. That's very concerning.
It is. It is. It's really concerning. We can either act or not act on the problem. And if we don't act on the problem by really putting resources behind it, then frankly, we really do so at our own peril. I mean, truly, truly at our own peril. And that might sound hyperbolic, but it's really not hyperbole. It's a reality that when that alarm bell sounds, there might not be enough people to answer the bell, or anybody to answer the bell. And I see that in my own hometown right now, my new hometown of Norwich, Vermont, which is a small town in the middle of Vermont. There's not a whole lot of crime, but there's one police officer right now. And we were without any police officers for a short time. We have a volunteer fire department. The chief has called me a few times asking if I'll join again. And it's been so long, I'd have to go through the academy, and I'm 50 and I'm not sure I want to do that.
But you don't.
but they're I think they're down to 12 firefighters.
Well, not to bring up Scott Caulfield
scary.
Again, but he was a firefighter in the Navy. So let's go, Scott.
Yeah, he's too far away, though. So it's weird. I live in Norwich, Vermont, which is not where Norwich University is, which is crazy because Norwich University is in Vermont. But it's actually, Norwich University is actually like 40 miles north of me in a town called Northfield, Vermont.
Well, let's make things complicated.
Scott's response time for the Norwich Village Fire Department would be a little too long.
A little too long.